cool thing is we can start saying, okay, we have 4 moves. Do they start with yin? Do they start with yang? Are they deflections? Are they attacks? And what we can see is that the 4 other moves are essentially variations on our core moves. So you're going to have, for example, push is 3 yang lines. And we saw press is yang, yin, yang. So what happens if you take push, yang, yang, and you make it yin at the end? What happens if you take press and it's yang, yin, yin at the end, right? So those are variations on what we have. Well, what we can see is, what are the 4 moves that we have left? We have elbow strike, shoulder strike, twist the joint, and yank. So what fits? Now we can start asking these questions. What fits? What would match these combination yang, yin, yin, or yang, yang, yin, right? Those are 2 on the yang side that are left. And this is where we can see that, for example, shoulder strike is yang, yang, yin. Why is it yin at the end? Because shoulder strike is rising up and then heavy. At the very end, it's downward, it's short, so it ends with a yin energy in the sense it ends with a heavy energy instead of being long and piercing like a push. It starts just like a push, but at the end, boom, becomes yin, right? So it's literally, it's like you were gonna throw a punch, but at the end, instead of letting that full yang energy all the way to the end, turns into yin, heavy, short energy. So shoulder strike is a variation on a push. It's a push that ends short. So shoulder strike goes into the offensive category with push and press. So we have push, press, shoulder strike, or attacks. We need 4th attack. And I'm going to say you can have yank. Because yank does not depend on somebody else. Yank is something, or pluck is something that you can walk up to somebody and just pluck, yank. And it's yang, yin, yin. Why is that? Well, because first it's an attack, right? That's the yang energy. You go for it, and then you send energy. But the quality of the energy that you send is yin. It's short, it's heavy. There's often rotation because pluck can be here, but it can also be here, right? So it's rotating in the hips. So it's an attack in the sense that you just walk up to somebody, grab their arm, and yank. So it's an attack. There's no yin component at the beginning. Pure yang. Just sending energy. It's just that the quality of the energy that you're sending is pure yin, right? Which is why it's the trigram for it is yang, yin, yin. Right? There's heavy, circular energy. Those are yin qualities, but you start with a yang attack. So now we have our 4 moves that are attacks. We have push, we have press, we have shoulder strike, and we have pluck. Those are the 4 moves that sit on the yang side of the Bagua. That leaves us with 2 moves, right? Because we have on the yin side, we have rollback and we have ward off. That leaves us with elbow strike and twist the joint. So what is elbow strike? And this is where the translation messes people up because we think elbow strike, well, you strike with the elbow. But actually elbow strike, if we think about it, is a variation on rollback because rollback is yin, yin, yin. So again, we ask ourselves, well, what's a variation on that? How can I make that a little more interesting? So what happens if we have yin, yin, yang? Well, you get elbow strike. What's elbow strike? Elbow strike is a deflection, right? Deflection. Deflection. There's the center line is still yin, which means we're here and we're heavy. And then we brace ourselves and we let somebody fall onto the elbow. We don't have to reach out and hit somebody with the elbow. They're coming towards us. At first, it's a deflection, and then they fall on the elbow. So now we see the shape of elbow strike is actually described by the trigram, yin, yin, yang. Yin, right? Yin deflection, roll back. Yin sitting down, bracing ourselves. Yang, now we're here, and there's forward intent as they fall onto the elbow. That's elbow strike, right? A variation on rollback. And you can see, if you were doing rollback, right? Something comes at you, go, oh, rollback. But what if their push is a little close, or it's short in range? You start the rollback and go, and transform it into an elbow strike, right? The potential for the elbow strike is in rollback. Rollback, elbow strike, turns into an elbow strike. So what does that leave us? Because we have all 7 moves now mapped out, except for twist the joint. And twist the joint, again, we ask ourselves, if we have ward off, which is yin, yang, yin, what happens if we have instead yin, yang, yang, right? Which is, unless I'm incorrect, that's the last trigram that's left. Well, what's twist the joint? If you remember in 13 postures, twist the joint is first and foremost here, this lifting of that front arm, reach forward, and then you twist. And the twist is not just twisting anyway, it's twist and push forward, right? So that's one of the essence of twist the joint. So you're creating a spiral, and it's not just a circle. What makes it a spiral is the fact that it's moving forward. So twist the joint is ward off, right? Where instead of pushing out, you create a circle. Right? That's twist the joint. So anytime you create a spiral, it's a twist the joint. And now we have all of our 8 moves mapped onto the Bagua, and we can look at the trigrams, and they're actually telling us something about the qualities of energies that we're expressing. Right? So we can now start asking questions. We can start thinking about, well, if this is supposed to be a yank or a pluck, or if we're doing, play the pipa, we can start asking, okay, which of these 8 moves is it? How am I expressing these qualities? And is it correct? So play the pipa, here, here, here. I can then think, okay, well, play the pipa, what's this? What's this part? Well, it's retreating, it's reaction to a punch. So this is rollback, right? So this is a rollback, and then this is a pluck, and this is a push. So play the pipa is rollback, pluck, push, right? And that's how you can then start thinking about what are the applications. If this is rollback, pluck, right, then that means there's a deflection and there's a lock right here. Because in order for me to do a pluck, I need to grab hold of something. You can't do a pluck without having first a way of controlling your opponent's arm. Right? That's one of the definitions of pluck. You can't just, pluck is not just grabbing somebody and just pulling down. There has to be some kind of control of your opponent's body part or arm. So, rollback, control, pluck, right? And then I step back to the front and push. Now, that's play the pipa. Of course, when you start doing it fully, then it becomes round because you're not breaking it down into those energies or in a linear way. You're making everything flow from one to the next. So the performance of the move is not right, linear and choppy. It becomes, and that's the surprise. This is why Tai Chi works, actually, is because you're not doing one thing, you're doing 3 things at once. Somebody throws a punch, and not only are they getting deflected, but they're also getting plucked at the same time. And by the time they've realized they've been plucked, they get punched in the face. That's the application. That's the genius of Tai Chi, right? It's this doing 2 or 3 things at once. Right? Not just 1, but 2 or 3. They keep stacking on one top of another, and they flow into the other, right? Which is why you have combinations that work best. elbow strike and shoulder strike, right? Because if I'm here, they fall into my elbow, well, the distance is short, so I can't really punch well, so boom, shoulder strike. Flows naturally from that to the other. So that's the framework that we're using, well, that I'm using, in order to look at the applications. Each application, each move, can then be analyzed in terms of these 8 building blocks. Now, there's also the 5 directions.